Hello, so today we're going to be looking at what are exam skills and what are the levels that we have been using and how do we kind of make sure that we're getting to those levels by looking at a few examples and me kind of walking you through what the examiner is going to be thinking when they mark your work and read your work. So, like I said, this is all for a 15-mark question. It's actually the same 15-mark question that I have used that I did in my previous video looking at monopoly power. So this structure that I went through in the last video and these levels, they're applicable to 15-mark questions in both paper 1 and paper 2. So you don't kind of have to have a different set of skills if you're doing paper 1 compared to paper 2. This should like kind of carry you through. What I suggest that you do is if you just go to the Edexcel website and just have a look at that 15-mark analysis, level 1, level 2 and evaluation level 1, level 2, level 3 kind of grid and have that with you. That might make it easier, but it isn't necessary for you to have it to be able to kind of understand what I'm going to be going through during this lesson. So there are a few things that I kind of wanted to make that I think that students, probably the best way to say it, get confused about. And one of the biggest things that my students get confused about anyway is that you don't have to write more to get to the level 3. It's not necessarily that you have to keep writing more and more and more as you go through to go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. It's not like a level 1 paragraph is 10 times or 3 times longer than a level 3 paragraph. So during this, I've made sure to use examples that are exactly the same length and have the same like kind of diagram, so you can see that actually a student can achieve a level 3 compared to a level 1 using the same amount of time and the same kind of structure as well. So they all follow the same structure that I give my students using kind of connective chains of reasoning. All of them follow the same thing, but the same structure, the same kind of sentence structure, but they're clearly level 1, level 2, level 3. Now all of these, I've typed them and drawn the diagram, but they're all examples of that 15-mark question that students have given me over the last 2 years. So most of them from last year, so you know, no one's going to be watching this and thinking, oh, is that mine? So all of them are the same length, and let's just get straight in and think about that level 1 paragraph. So level 1 paragraph is coming up now. What I suggest you do is you just pause and read through the paragraph, and then I'll kind of go through it with you to show you where that kind of level 1 comes from. So the first paragraph here. So the reason why this is level 1, and if you've got that grid in front of you, it's going to be really easy for you to see kind of where my wording is coming into it. So what I'm going to do is literally just take the kind of wording of the exam board and give you examples as to where that wording fits in now. So the first one is obviously imprecise knowledge here. There's lots of imprecise knowledge. The first thing is that first sentence. The student has very clearly confused monopoly and monopsony, right? So you can see right there that the student is talking about what they think they're talking about monopoly, but actually it's a monopsony. And also we can see as well that it's not precise when they talk about the loss of 2% of profit. Like the market share, they've lost 2% of the market share, but they've lost 2% of the market share by revenue, so their profit could have gone up or could have gone down. Actually, even though they've lost market share, technically their revenue could have increased, but it's just that everybody else's revenue increased slightly more. So that's also imprecise, and obviously we can see that the diagram is imprecise as well. They're not showing the profit maximising position there, they're not showing where MC equals MR. So on the mark scheme it says that level 1 has imprecise knowledge, and we can see that there's quite a few examples here of imprecise knowledge. The second thing that the mark scheme is going to say as well is for a level 1 answer, it's going to be generic or irrelevant information. So just have a look through the paragraph and think about what might be generic or irrelevant in this paragraph. So the first thing that speaks to me is very generic, definitely the word generic, is that the student here uses the term supermarket all the way through. And we know, especially if you watched that last video, that actually the supermarkets are in different positions. So you've got Tesco's who has the monopoly power, but then you have the other ones that don't have any monopoly power, and actually their influence and their impact is so different in the market. So the idea of saying supermarket is not specific, it's very kind of generic and irrelevant. And the other thing that they're going to talk about when they look at level 1 is they say something that's called no link between cause and consequence. Now we can see that here in this level 1 paragraph because they talk about kind of large monopoly power because they are large. Well, we know that firms, I mean there is something in the idea of like a firm gets larger, and then they get economies of scale, so they have more buying power, so they are able to offer, so their AC4s and potentially their MC4s, so then they're able to offer more, like a lower price, which means that they might be able to push other people out, so therefore they might gain more monopoly power. But that's not what the student is saying, it's not what the student is trying to explain, or if they are trying to explain it, they're saying it in a very generic way, they're not explaining the cause and the consequence. So this is very clearly a level 1 paragraph, and it fits into kind of that 3 main criteria for level 1 that as an examiner I look for. So coming up next, we've got our level 2 analysis paragraph, and we're going to have a look at what or why this is a level 2 analysis paragraph. So again, I'm going to walk you through that kind of examiner jargon and then give you some examples tied directly to this so you can see exactly why this is a potential level 2 paragraph. So pause again, read through it, see what you think, see why you think it might be. So the first thing that it shows is that they're very clear, and this is the kind of exam board verbatim here, is elements of knowledge and understanding. There's very clear elements of knowledge and understanding in this answer. So they've talked about price setting power, and then they've talked about increased profit due to the price setting power. I mean, that's some elements of some strong knowledge. The student clearly has a good idea of what they are talking about. There is definitely some cause and consequence when we compare it to that last answer. They've started kind of talking that because of the price setting power, then they have, they can increase their profit because they've got that price setting power. There's some application there. They talk about Tesco's. It does kind of seem a little bit like it's just been slotted in, but it's definitely there, and that's, you know, definitely something that kind of contributes to them getting level 2. They talk generic again. It's still a little bit generic because they talk about producers, talking about supermarkets. Personally, there's no difference for me using kind of supermarkets or using producers. You know, it doesn't make any difference. And there's some development here, there's some linking of kind of coherent chains of reasoning or chains of reasoning, but they kind of lack development, they're very narrow. And, you know, we can apply that to right here where we say that monopoly, so, you know, they can set prices, so they know that it's a monopoly, so they can set prices. So there's some development, but, I mean, it's not really clear to me when I'm reading this that the student knows exactly what they're talking about, right? So, and obviously we've got a diagram there. The diagram is correct, it shows a price setting power in the sense that they're able to profit maximise it. But I would say that the diagram is static. Now I've said this before and I'm going to keep saying it, is that static diagrams do not get you many marks. Your diagram needs to mirror what you are saying in your analysis paragraph. Whereas this kind of just feels like it's plonked in as, look, I know what I'm doing, here's a diagram, I can draw it. But they haven't manipulated, they haven't adapted that diagram, that theory, to say that, to kind of tell the same story than they've kind of done before, like as they've written in their analysis. So, you know, this student here clearly has some idea of what they're saying. They probably, you know, this isn't like you don't get marks for effort, unfortunately, and they've tried really hard, but it's not a solid level 3 answer. Reading it, I can see that they know quite a bit, that they've tried really hard, but actually, is that core economic content and knowledge there? Not so much, and you'll kind of see really why that is when we look at the level 3 paragraph now. So here is the level 3 paragraph up here now. Just pause and have a read through of that. It's a lovely paragraph, you know, and I'm sure that you reading it can really start to see the difference between that level 1, that level 2 and that level 3 paragraph, and it's really clear to you kind of some of the things that maybe I have been trying to say to you up until now, what we expect from a 15 marker and what we expect definitely from a kind of level 3 paragraph at least. So why? Well, we've got lots of accurate knowledge. They've talked about Tesco's being better off to start off with, so they clearly understand that Tesco's is the one with the monopoly power and they're the ones that are better off. They've got clear linked chains of reasoning, and they talk about kind of the diagram represents exactly what they're talking about. So, you know, kind of they've gone from the industry price and shifted to the profit maximising price, and they're able to do that because they have price setting power. They're able to do that because they're the leader in the market, and they're able to do that because they've got 28% of the market share. So it kind of really nicely tells a kind of accurate picture of what might happen because of having that price setting power, because of having that market share in the supermarket industry. It's all linked in context, and it's really important that when you look at this paragraph, you can understand that the student has started off, there's a very clear link between cause and consequence. And that's really what you can see when we look at the level 1 to the level 2 to the level 3. That actually the level 1 had no cause to consequence, the level 2 had some cause to consequence, they started to break it down a little bit, but actually the level 3 paragraph here really clearly explains, using economics, it kind of has that, what I describe as, I couldn't have answered this if I hadn't have been in my lessons. So there are lots of answers that I read as an examiner and also as a teacher where I'm like, this is really interesting. This student really understands what they're reading in the news, they understand what they're reading kind of with what's going on around them, but have they been able to link that to economic theory? Have they been able to link that to what we learn as economists and we build upon throughout our economic career, so we can go to university. So you can see that the level 3 paragraph definitely does that. So now we're going to have a look at our evaluation paragraph, and we're going to start off with our level 1 evaluation paragraph, and we're going to go through why that is level 1, and then we'll do the exact same all the way through to level 3. Now these evaluation paragraphs are balanced to the evaluation, to the analysis point. So the level 1 paragraph is balanced to the level 1 analysis, the level 2 evaluation paragraph is balanced to the level 2 analysis, and the level 3 to the level 3. So you can kind of read, and that's important because the exam board expects you to have balanced evaluation. I did speak about that in my last video. So our level 1 evaluation paragraph, you should have read it by now, but if you haven't, that's okay, just pause and read through it and kind of see for yourself. So some of the things that the exam board says is that a level 1 paragraph will be generic comments with no supporting evidence, and we can quite clearly see that here where they talk about they have economies of scale, bulk buying leading to regain the 2% profit loss. Right now, firstly, we know that actually it might not be a profit loss, so that's inaccurate, and it's a market share by revenue loss, so you could say a market share loss, that's absolutely fine. Their profits may have gone up, so that's not right, and it's very generic, that's a statement. That's what I would call, kind of like the example would call like a statement. It has no logical chains of reasoning. It kind of talks about like economies of scale, and then it ends with being able to set prices. Now, that's something that's really, really important. You might think that you are creating a logical chain of reasoning. Now, what I get my students to do, and what I think is so important and useful for you to do, is read your first sentence and read your last sentence and see if they make sense, right? See if in your mind they make sense. So see if you can actually, it makes sense to say, they might get economies of scale, this will lead to them have price setting power. Because essentially what you're doing is you're just breaking down a story as to why that happens in an evaluation or an analysis paragraph, either way. And if they don't match, if they're like, okay, actually that doesn't really make much sense, then you've probably kind of gone through what we would call like first, second and third round effects. And actually you need to keep it in that first round effect. And by that I mean really simple, depth not breadth, kind of really explain something well using a lot of economic theory rather than kind of making jumps in your evaluation, which is exactly what this paragraph does here, right? So try and keep it cohesive and try and keep it really narrow, but with a lot of depth, a lot of explanation as to why those very simple things kind of happen. So we're going to have it, so that's definitely a level 1 paragraph. So there's no logical chains of reasoning, and there's generic comments and no supporting evidence. So they don't really use the case study or their own knowledge, which is what the question asked you to do, to be able to kind of bring that to the question, to create those logical chains of reasoning, to be able to give those kind of comments a bit of body. They don't do that at all, so there's definitely in a level 1. So we're going to have a look at our second evaluation paragraph now, which is here, and our second evaluation paragraph. So one of the things that it says in the second evaluation paragraph is that there's evidence of an alternative viewpoint. Now that's important, but for me, and we'll see this when we look at the level 3 paragraph, this paragraph particularly falls into kind of the mistake that I see a lot of students make when they do their evaluation. And it's kind of like, not transitioning so well from the GCSE through to the A level. And by GCSE I mean any GCSE, where we look at evaluation in a lot of GCSE subjects and we kind of say, right, your analysis is this will happen and your evaluation is very much like it won't happen or it can't happen because. But that's not what we want in economics. That's not what I would describe as sophisticated evaluation. Actually, sophisticated evaluation is, you know what, our analysis says this might happen. I always say, you know, analysis ceteris paribus, and then evaluation is remove the ceteris paribus, actually in reality, what is going on. So theory and reality. So rather than this will happen, this won't happen, you can have something a bit more complex, like this will happen in your analysis in theory on paper, but actually in reality, it might not happen in the way you want it to. It might happen slowly, it might not happen, you know, at all. That is a potential, or it might not happen in the way that you might expect it to, or there are certain conditions in the market that means that this isn't going to happen under this situation. So actually it's far more kind of complex. And when I see students saying, okay, on theory, this is what's going to happen, but actually there are some really specific kind of influences in this market that mean that this might not happen, that's where I'm really excited to read that evaluation. That's what I really like, and I think, okay, this student really understands this. This student has a really good view of economics and theory and how, you know, economics is a social science, you know? So and this example here is very much kind of a good example of this will happen, however it will not happen because. So we do have evidence of an alternative viewpoint. They've clearly got an alternative viewpoint here. We do have reference to context, but it is partially developed. Now, what that might mean, or kind of what that does mean in this case, is that it's kind of saying about it may not be able to set prices, but it doesn't explain why they're not able to set prices. It doesn't go into the depth of telling me why they might not be able to set prices. And it kind of falls into that other area that I see that I will kind of say or write on your work, where it says lots of keywords but no theory. So you're kind of throwing out so many keywords to me, but you're not really explaining any theory, and that's a solid kind of level 2. Okay, yeah, you've got some marks for sure, but is it the top marks? No, because you've got understanding, but do you have depth of knowledge? Are you able to adapt that depth of knowledge and be critical? Not so much. And hopefully you'll be able to see exactly what I'm saying in the next paragraph, which is our level 3 paragraph here. So in our level 3 paragraph, we can see that we've got kind of explains why they may not have price saying power. So that was what I was lacking from that level 2 paragraph. Here it really explains why they they might not have price setting power. And then it goes on to talk about, well, actually, you know, what might happen in the market compared to, in reality, compared to that analysis paragraph, that level 3 analysis paragraph. And what I really suggest you do is you read this evaluation paragraph, you go back to that analysis paragraph, and you can really see that actually they're very balanced, they're very connected, and it gives an alternative viewpoint from a different angle. And it gives it in quite good detail. It's got some really good theory here, and it explains it step by step. So, I'll keep that up there so you can carry on reading it, but overall, I just want you to kind of leave this video seeing that, firstly, level 1, level 2, level 3, it's not about writing more. It's really not. All of these paragraphs are the same length and they get vastly different marks. Obviously, I've just provided half an essay for you. You'd have to provide the other half of the essay, the consumer side of the essay, before I can tell you exactly how many marks you get. Obviously this is half, you're marked as not an average, but you're marked over your 2 analysis and your 2 evaluation paragraphs. So kind of think about that before, you know, you think about where would I mark this within that. But these are solid level 1, level 2, level 3 examples. I hope that you found that really useful. I hope that you found it useful to have a look at kind of what we expect from you and some good examples of, you know, those different levels. And I hope this has been useful, and I look forward to seeing you next week. So have a great weekend. Bye!